David Samson, host of Nothing Personal, here in his normal Thursday spot. And David, one of your favorite topics, player contract negotiations. And you've got the biggest contract on the way that's ever Major League Baseball will have ever seen in Shohei Ohtani's. He's got a UCL injury and will not pitch for likely at least another year. And he's going into his free agency. Wow, what does that mean for him? What does it mean for baseball? What does it mean for this winter?
It's a nightmare all the way around. So let's start with Shohei Ohtani as the greatest player who ever played baseball. That's the theory that we all have, because he's a top of the rotation starter and he's a middle of the order bat. So if he can be Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole, then why isn't he paid Aaron Judge plus Garrett Cole?
Right.
And that was the plan for him and his agent, that he would get $50 or $60 million a year. And going into age 31, let him sign a 10-year deal. And my problem was, how long can he actually do both at this level? This injury, what it guarantees is, and I discussed it on this morning's Nothing Personal, number one, his free agent deal will include an opt-out, because the only way I would allow him to sign if I were his agent is that he's not going to get paid like both, because he's not both right now.
He is going to have how many years, David?
I would not give it till after 26. He's going to ask for it after 25. But an opt-out after 2 years, all of the money that you're spending, and then you're only getting him for 2 years, is that really worth it to do?
And only one of those years would be him pitching, probably.
So that you're 100% right. He is not going to pitch for the rest of 24. He is likely not going to pitch in 2000 for the rest of 23, and likely not going to pitch in 24. So the first time that he can pitch is 25. But tell me the list of players, and one of them is a former Marlin who is able to pitch after 2 Tommy Johns and pitch effectively. Our old friend Nate Eovaldi. That's pretty much the list. It's not Josh Johnson, who tried and had multiple Tommy Johns. It is incredibly rare, and don't mention Daniel Hudson. That doesn't count. For Ohtani to be the best pitcher in baseball after 2 Tommy Johns, it's going to be very challenging. So the likelihood of him being an ace for the next 5 years is de minimis. For the next 10 years, it's absolutely out of the question.
They should have traded him. So the interesting
100%.
David, the interesting part that I look at now when I think about this sort of smaller contract that Ohtani could get, or this contract with opt-outs, is does that mean some of the smaller market teams in Major League Baseball could potentially now get in on trying to recruit Ohtani with the idea of, we'll offer you this massive deal like you guys did with Giancarlo Stanton, knowing very well we won't pay this entire thing. We'll have him here for a couple of years as a gimmick, and then we'll let him opt out. Well, one way or another, this franchise in this theoretical scenario, knowing, hey, if Ohtani is everything that he's supposed to be and he gets healthy, he's going to opt out after a couple of years anyway, and we won't have to pay 10 years, $400 million. So could a team, say like the Marlins, decide, sure, we'll offer the first couple of years will be $80 million to have Shohei Ohtani, but then after that, he's
basically
gone.
Does the injury open up the door for a bunch of teams to get involved in the Shohei deal?
No, I totally understood that question, but the answer is no. And the reason the answer is no is you have to look at what percentage of your total payroll an individual player takes. And when we signed Stanton, we did the math, and at his height, he was going to be at $32 million. And our view was that we would have a payroll of at least $150 million by that time, which would have been right about now. Because the most you ever want to do is 20% for one player of your total payroll. And then you better have a good young team who can supplement in order to really win with the player making that much. And so if your payroll is 150 now and you're paying Ohtani $40 million, that math just doesn't work. So I don't think that he is available to any team whose payroll is below 190 to $220 million.
Well, there goes that dream. Chris actually made a couple of points, good points here. He said, imagine how good the Angels would have felt. I don't know why I said actually there. I'm sorry, Chris.
My head turned a little bit.
I always do it off air, too.
I meant actually because he didn't do it on air. But he said one of the points was, imagine how good they'd feel if they did trade him now and found out about this injury. Also, they need to just work him to the ground and make him less attractive even more for the rest of this year to other teams.
Isn't that what the Angels are they're doing right now? They're trying to make his value as little as possible, no?
Yeah, if I'm Ohtani, I'm not playing the rest of the year. There is no reason. We didn't even mention the fact that Mike Trout went back on the injured list after being off for a day. If I were the president of the Marlins and we did that, you guys would be hammering right now as irresponsible, not knowing how to handle a player or an injury. They let him come back from the same thing that happened to Lowell back in 2003, the broken hamate bone right here when you get hit by a pitch. And he came back for a day and said, oh, it's not worth it. It hurts too much. I'm back on the IL. If I'm Ohtani and I'm Ohtani's agent, I love that he went 1 for 5 in game 2 of the doubleheader and that he came back and hit after he was hurt in game 1 as a pitcher. But it's just not worth it, because if any of his mechanics change and he ends up with any sort of shoulder issue or lower half issue because he has to compensate, even though he was able to come back as a DH after Tommy John earlier than he was able to come back and pitch, he'll be able to do that again. But there is no reason. The Angels are finished. If I'm Ohtani, I love baseball, but no, I'm done for the year.